Hello. So there's normally a time in your motorhoming life when you decide you need to change your motorhome. It might be that you're going to go for something larger, something smaller, or that you've decided actually you're going to take a break from motorhoming for a while. So there's several ways that you can go about actually selling a motorhome and moving it on. So why don't we go inside, sit down and have a chat, and I can talk you through the different options. Come with me. So there are probably 5 main options when it comes to selling your motorhome. Option 1 is one that everyone's probably already heard of and thought about, and it's simply selling it for cash. So there are normally places online, through the phone book, through adverts in newspapers, of companies and organisations who will just simply buy your motorhome for cash. The advantages of this way are that simply they arrive, they offer you a price for your motorhome. If you're happy with it, you accept it, the deal's done, and then the motorhome gets driven away and you haven't got to worry about anything to do with it at all afterwards. The downside of that is that generally it's probably going to get you the lowest return for your motorhome, and when your vehicles get sold into the trade system, then the traders become liable for them under the Consumer Rights Act, and therefore they have to take a greater margin in case there's any issues or anything that comes up afterwards. So you are almost always going to get the least return for your investment in your motorhome if you sell it this way. Option 2 is to advertise it privately yourself. Again, it works for some people, and it is simply straightforward. If you're happy, you're around at home and you're happy to take viewings and happy to have people come along to see you and to deal with all of that, then it's a simple way of moving a vehicle along. However, there is a huge number of fraudsters out there, and there is a huge risk now, especially with private sales of motorhomes. So both for buyers and sellers. So if you are selling a motorhome privately, be prepared to have lots of people say they want to come along and view it every Saturday, Sunday, and they don't turn up. There are people who have got no idea what they're looking for, and they treat your driveway like a sales yard and come and have a browse. That's not really fair on you when you've waited in on a Saturday afternoon to come and see it. And also you need to be very careful in terms of money and financial transactions. So there are lots of scams going on in terms of motorhome sales, and people pretending to put money into accounts and it not really going through. So you do need to make sure that any money that's paid to you, there's test payments, you've checked, and you're absolutely 100% sure that that money is securely in your bank account before you allow somebody to drive away with your motorhome and your investment. Another thing to consider with private sales as well is that it's really important that you do actually vet the people who are going to be coming around to your house and to see your motorhome. At the end of the day, you've got a vehicle that's parked on your driveway. You could live somewhere quite remote, you could live somewhere that's quite exposed, and they're going to be having a look at security options, what you've got on the vehicle, everything else. You don't know who they are and who's turning up. So you need to certainly find out and do your research on the people buying. How serious are they? What have they already done to look at motorhomes? And if they come along, what is your expectation? What is their expectation of the transaction and the viewing? So just make sure that you are secure if you do arrange to meet at a neutral location. But then the final handover should happen at your own property, because obviously from a buyer's perspective, we always recommend that someone, if they are buying, they buy from the actual location at the registered V5C address, because checking documentation, checking paperwork is an easy way for fraudsters to trick people into buying stolen motorhomes. So always do your research if you're either buying or selling through the private system. So option 3 is a trade-in. Now, this is ideal if you're thinking of staying within the motorhoming community and perhaps you're going to go upsize or downsize the motorhome that you've currently got in campervan. In trade-ins, dealers will give you a value that they feel that your vehicle will be worth against the vehicle that you're selling, and depending on what you're potentially going to buy, you might get a different price for your existing vehicle. The advantage of a trade-in is that you've got the safety net, is that it's going in basically as a deposit towards your next motorhome. The dealer takes it on board, they deal with everything for it thereafter, they take responsibility for it under the Consumer Rights Act, and you can then actually drop one motorhome off and go and pick your new one up and head away, and that's it sorted. The downside of trade-ins that you should also consider is the fact that because the dealers are taking them into their stock list again under the Consumer Rights Act, they therefore have to allow margin for errors, and a van that's been perfectly behaved for you for the last 5 years may suddenly decide to have problems for the new owner. So dealers will always take that into account. So it's not the same loss that you would make as if you sold it for cash, but it's not the same option if you go for one of the final options. So that leads me on to options 4 and 5, sorry, which are brokerage. And I split them into two because there's two kind of different brokerage systems that operate in the UK. So one option that you're aware of is that you're probably aware of is the dealership options. So for instance, at Highland Campervans, we often have vehicles in on brokerage. So they remain private vehicles. They belong to the sellers at all times whilst they're parked on our premises. However, Highland Campervans deals with everything to do with the sale. So you can drop your van off, we will make sure it's cleaned, we will make sure it's photographed, we will make sure it's videoed, we will advertise it all over the internet so it gets lots of viewings around the whole of the UK. People will travel for the right motorhome, and especially if it's advertised properly and fairly and it's shown off to its best advantage. So we do all of that, we cover that, and then in terms of when it comes to the sale security, we vet potential buyers and make sure that actually they are who they say they are, and check that there is actually cash coming through. We make sure we deal with all the financial transactions, so we know the money has gone through our business bank account, and we know it absolutely is secure, and we can then pay you once the vehicle sells. So the downside of that is that you do have to wait. If you put a vehicle on brokerage into a dealer's forecourt, you're going to have to wait until a buyer comes along to actually get the cash from your vehicle. But if you're not in a rush and you're happy with that, then it's a great way of pushing vehicles through. And also sometimes vehicles, the reason you're selling it is that, you know, there's been bereavement or there's medical concerns or other things, and sometimes having a vehicle at home on your driveway is quite an emotional attachment, and it can be really hard. So sometimes allowing a dealership to help sell your vehicle for you, like Highland Campervans, it just gives you that peace of mind and reassurance. And at any time you can phone at the dealer's forecourt, and you know, we can phone and we can FaceTime customers and show, yes, your vehicle's still parked here, don't worry, it's fine, but we've got security, it's covered, it's all fine. So option 5, if you would like to try and move your motorhome on, but you're potentially thinking you want to keep using it and until you want to actually to change one for another option is to use a remote brokerage service. So at Highland Campervans, we work very closely with a brokerage service called Motorhome Depot, and they're a bit like an estate agency for houses, but they help with advertising motorhomes. And for that one, our representative would go along to your house and we would take the photographs, the videos and everything else. We'd do all the advertising, all of the brokerage stuff that we would normally do if it was here on the dealer's forecourt. However, in this case, the vehicle stays on your drive, so you can keep using it whilst it's up for sale. We generally don't allow people to go and view the vehicles unless they are really serious about buying it. This system on the remote brokerage is for browsers. It's more for people who know what they want to get. They've seen the virtual tours, they've seen the virtual viewings, and as long as everything is as it's expected to be, when they go and do the viewing of the motorhome, it's normally a straight sale, and then we arrange a handover and it's all done. Advantages of using a system like that, again, is that you've got somebody else who's going to do the handover for you. On either brokerage option, the sales staff will always do the handovers. They show all the appliances working, they show the heater, the hot water, everything working, so that this buyer knows that the vehicle has been handed over to them in as good a condition as it can be. Things can go wrong on vehicles at any times, but what we want to make sure is that at that point of handover, everybody, both the seller and the buyer, is confident that actually everything has been done that can be done to make sure the vehicle is in a good and roadworthy condition for the next people using it. So if you're interested in any of the brokerage options, then please do speak to the sales team. We're happy to give you a price on a whole variety, whether we buy a vehicle in for cash or whether we put it through on the brokerage system. What we're here for, though, is to support you and to make sure that you are protected both as a buyer and as a seller from scams and fraudsters, and that is the biggest concern that we also have to watch out for in the industry. So please do get in touch. We can give you a price and give you a quote for your vehicle and see if we can help you move on and find another vehicle that's maybe right for you. Thank you.